Welcome to Last Call with Jamion Christian. Our guest today, Will Wade, formerly the head coach at Chattanooga, VCU, and LSU. Will, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
And let's be honest, man, it's great to hear your voice. It's great to be on the line with a good friend, and I'm glad you're doing well.
Yeah, does everybody know we used to work together?
Well, we're going to dive into all of that stuff because I think that's like the really fun stuff. We'll dive into some flag football as well, and just learning and gaining mutual respect in the office space. I think is pretty important. But I think firstly, just mental check on you, man. How are things going for you? How are you and your family?
We're good. We're in Tennessee. We moved back to Chattanooga, and my wife's good. My daughter's good. She started kindergarten, so we're all doing well. No complaints.
Yeah, I think one of the underestimated things that happened when you and I are both fired, I think a week apart, which gave us some company. But I think one thing that happens is people don't realize the toll it takes on your family, and just being able to balance that out and the life decisions that are having to be made because of that.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. Look, when you get into coaching, you can get fired. That's just part of what you sign up for, no matter how it works. But one of the toughest parts for me when I talk about the family was we stayed in Baton Rouge so my daughter could finish the school year, and also her birthday's at the end of April, so we wanted to have her birthday there with her friends. And so one of the most difficult parts for me was going to the birthday party and seeing her with her friends, and then seeing all the moms were crying afterwards, and all the kids were crying, and it was just a scene, and that it hit me that it wasn't just me. Obviously, my family's affected, but just all the other people that that were affected by everything. But that was a really strong moment for me, where it kind of opened my eyes. Because when you're coaching, you know how it is. I didn't even know. I knew who her closest friends were, but half the people at the birthday party, I didn't know who they were. And then you just talk to everybody and kind of hear everything, and so that was difficult. But my family, like I said, they're troopers. They've moved around quite a bit. They know what the deal is, and my wife likes it here in Chattanooga, and we're off and rolling.
Yeah, I think it's one of the harder things. My son is 10 years old now, so obviously a little bit older than your daughter. And we're about, I think we had about 10 games left in the season. And, he gets in the car, and my son at the time lived in another town. So we were doing the divorcee thing, and he gets in the car and he goes, Dad, he's like really quiet, and I'm like talking to him, like, man, what's going on? How are you? And he's never quiet. And my son is a chatterbox. And he goes, Dad, I read something that you're going to get fired, And so it's like these real humbling conversations that you have to have. That I think ultimately gives them a level of toughness. But when they're younger, they're so much more affected by it than maybe you and I are. And when you go through that experience, it's like now you have to really focus in on your family and trying to make sure they're in the right place before you really do anything.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. Like I was getting at earlier, as coaches, you're kind of hardened. This is a not a likely outcome, but this is a potential outcome. The minute you take a job, but your family doesn't understand that. My daughter, she thought we were going to live in Baton Rouge for forever. And so, that's just, she didn't get that. And those are the difficult conversations. But like you said, her going to a new school, her meeting new people, she's met some new friends here in Chattanooga, like all that has been very good for her and will continue to be good, just moving through life.
Yeah. How's it for you, like adjusting? And I'm going to ask you these questions partly for me and partly for our guests, but what's it like for you kind of adjusting into not having the rigors of college basketball every day?
It's been different. When you're used to going 110 miles an hour all day, every day, when you're coaching and you dial it back, I'd say the first 2 or 3 months, it was actually really relaxing. It was good. it was fun, and I just kind of did what I wanted to do and traveled a little bit, did what I felt like basically. But after that, you just start getting bored. Like, what do people do with all this time? And so I've tried to do some things. I've worked on some projects and done a couple things to tie my mind up. But yeah, after a little bit, you just get like once the newness of it wears off, it's like, it's pretty boring. Like it's 11:30 in the morning in the middle of the day, and you got nothing to do. Like, what are you going to do? And you're used to playing in practice. You're used to doing that sort of stuff. But I've tried to stick to a routine, and I still get up and run every morning. And now that my daughter started school, I pick her up from school every day. So that's been pretty good. So it kind of gives me some deadlines to get everything done before I pick her up and bring her home, and then all hell breaks loose. So it's been good. Like I said, the first 2 or 3 months just kind of relaxing and sitting around was great. But now the novelty's worn off, and you want a little bit more. You want a little bit more to do. So I'm finding some other ways to take my time up.
Yeah. I mean, we've been like chasing this thing for a long time. I mean, you're talking 20 years of chasing opportunity to be a head coach and stand on the sideline and kind of be the person that's doing that. So the time off is definitely different. I mean, my wife and I were talking about Tom Brady and like, why would he, she was like, why would he come back? I was like, he's probably bored out of his mind, like not having training, not having different things to do. I can feel that being definitely really difficult for people that are really highly driven.
Oh, there's no doubt. That's a great point on Tom Brady. But yeah, it's just you're used to competing. You're used to you'd be in I'd be traveling all over the place recruiting right now, and I've done some clinics and I've done a bunch of stuff. I've kind of done what I've wanted to do and done what I've enjoyed doing, which has been freeing and good. But like you said, there's only so much of that stuff you can do.
Yeah. What would you say you probably missed the most?
Oh, I miss I'm one of the few college coaches probably who like, and this, like, I didn't mind all the issues that came up every day. Like, I liked kind of dealing with them, figuring out how to deal with them, figuring out how to maneuver with them, especially with the players. I miss, yeah, you miss the most just being around the players and being around a team, and building a team and spending time with the team. And when you're in it, it's all consuming.
Yeah.
A season's like 5 years, just in terms of how long it is and how, just navigating through the ebbs and flows of it. So getting a good rhythm and get good chemistry. And so, I miss that. I miss being around the team and just building the team and helping the guys. That was the fun part for me.
Yeah, and again, I had a chance to work alongside you, so I know how passionate you are about helping the guys and being there for the guys. And obviously now the NCAA and the world are kind of merging together, and so some of the issues that we kind of worked through while we were at VCU together, all those things are kind of coming to light now, and they're really trying to find ways to make the lives better for the players. But for a long time, there's these inequities that are existing, and we had to learn how to be creative to help them. And I always thought you were one of the best at being able to do that. When you talk about running a program, managing a program, building a program, you've certainly done it a few times. What is it about your personality that, I mean, again, I think you're an unbelievable problem solver. What is it about your personality that has allowed you to be so successful building these programs?
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, the biggest thing is I'm just myself. I don't try to pretend to be somebody I'm not. I mean, you show up and you know what you're going to get. I'm the same person every day. And, I used to say this a lot, and it's the truth. I got a lot of bad qualities just like everybody, but I got two really good ones. One, if I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And two, I'm fiercely loyal. And so, I think I think the players always know that, if I tell them something, it's going to get done. And that I'm going to have their backs at all times. And I think if you do that, you can build good cohesion with the team, good cohesion with the program. And that's how you deal with anybody, whether it's the players, the managers, the assistants, the graduate assistants, your administration, whatever it may be. That's just, you got to be yourself. I think sometimes people get jobs and try to be somebody they're not, or try to be their former boss and try to be, try to do what was done. Every job's different. Every situation's different. You got to evaluate it and figure out what'll work there and then go make it happen. And so, I did that. Shoot, my first year at Chattanooga as the head coach, I tried to do everything we did at VCU, everything. And I mean, we pressed and we had havoc at VCU. I had chaos at Chattanooga. I mean, I tried to do everything. We beat IUPUI on like a buzzer beater. That was our only Division I win basically before Christmas, and we had a couple non-1 wins. I said, all right, I better scrap all this and just kind of do what I want to do and figure it out. We started playing a matchup zone and all sorts of other crazy stuff. And we won like 12 straight games, 9 or 10, 12 straight games, something like that. So, you just got to be yourself and do what you feel comfortable with and be authentic.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the hardest things to like learn, because part of that is like learning your voice. And you kind of you move to a position because you've been able to support others. And then, I always say in that first 3 years, you really figure out who you are as a coach. You develop that voice and not just how you want to play. I mean, I don't know about you. What did you? I felt like learning how I wanted to play was one of the easier parts.
Oh yeah, that's the easiest part. Shoot, that first time you stand up there in front of that team and they're hanging on every word, everything you say and everything you do is judged by somebody, whether it's your staff, your team, your administration, and so you've got to be extremely careful with how you operate. You've got to be extremely careful with your words. There's stuff as an assistant, you could say that you just can't say as a head coach. Like at the end of, like, for instance, the basketball part's the easy part, but like, for instance, at the end of practices, everybody huddles their team. Well, I found out, I would talk for 5 or 10 minutes for my first couple of years as a head coach, and I'd probably say some wild stuff because you're emotional after practice. I found out real quickly, like, that does no good. All it does is make me feel better. The team's tired. They don't want to listen to me. So, like, at the end, I'd limit myself to like one quick thought, break it down, and get out. Or sometimes I wouldn't even give a quick thought. So I could just we deal with it tomorrow. Like, there's no need to worry about it today. So, or that day right after practice, we weren't going to solve anything then. And so, I think you just learn and figure out what works for you and what gets you in rhythm with your team.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I do feel like, and having a chance, we'll get into us working together and stuff like that. But I want to get into, you hit on it just a little bit there. Is just discipline, self-discipline, and what that does for your team, but what that's done for you. And I want to go all the way back to Clemson. Number one, anyone that ever goes to Clemson is like, I love Clemson. So I walked into that VCU coaching locker room, and we had Morrell, we had Shaka, and we had you, and I think Sarton was there by that time. And everybody was like, I love Clemson. So I learned a lot about Clemson basketball and football before I even had a chance to coach one game at VCU. But what was it about, that you learned at Clemson that's allowed you to become, the person who's a head coach at 30 years old and in the NCAA tournament at 31 or 32?
Well, I was very fortunate. I worked for Oliver Purnell there and Larry Shyatt, and I learned how to run a overall run a program. They were very good at running a program. Coach Purnell, in fact, a lot of the staples of what Shaka does and what I did were rooted in Coach Purnell's system. But Clemson's it's a great place, and I was a manager there, and you learn work ethic, you learn what it takes. At the end of the day, you're in a league with North Carolina, Duke, Louisville's in the league now, but you've got a bunch of blue bloods in that league, and at the end of the day, you're at Clemson, and so what's your advantage? How can you maneuver things? And you've got to work extremely hard, and you've got to figure things out, be creative. Have solutions to stuff. Anybody can tell you what all the problems are, but what are the solutions to being able to win games there? And I was fortunate to be around Coach Purnell. He went to 5 straight NCAA tournaments there, which is just incredible, absolutely incredible. And so, just watching Coach Purnell, watching the assistants, watch how they work. I learned a lot from Shaka when he was there, Kevin Nickelberry when he was there, Ron Bradley, Frank Smith. I mean, all those guys. You just pay attention to what they do, and you learn a ton. You learn a ton from those guys.
Yeah, one guy that I've like gotten really close with over the last few years was Kevin Nickelberry. When he was at Howard as a head coach, we would scrimmage, and if he was doing some different events and stuff, he'd invite us down. What's it like, working alongside him? I mean, I think he was GA, correct?
Oh yeah, I was his GA.
So
He
let's talk
treated me a
about.
lot worse. I used to tell him all the time because he was my assistant the last couple of years at LSU. I'd tell him all the time, I treat you a lot better as an assistant than you treated me as a GA. Don't ever forget that. So I had to build a shed in his backyard when I was a GA. I had to build a shed in like 100-degree heat because he was out recruiting in July and they were getting ready to move in and needed like a storage shed for his lawnmower stuff. And as you know, I'm not like the most handy guy in the world. So I was out in like 100-degree heat and building the shed. And he called from the road and like ordered me a pizza to pay me for building the shed out in the heat when I was a GA. So now that's what's so crazy. Now I used to always joke with our GAs and be like, y'all could have never made it 15, 20 years ago. Like all the GAs now think they should be a head coach. Their next job's to be a head coach. Yeah, no, I learned I learned a lot from him. I was very fortunate. One of the positives to being at Clemson at the time was we didn't have nearly the support staff, the number of people that a lot of the other schools had or have now. And so, they needed help on stuff. And so I was much more probably involved as a manager and as the graduate assistant and as the ops guy later on. I was probably much more involved in the operations of things than I probably should have ever been at that young age. And I was very fortunate to, be around Coach Nick and be around those guys and learn as much as I could.
Yeah, Nickelberry he's got a reputation as a terrific recruiter, but I also thought he's a very, very good head coach. You look at the different strategies that he was able to implement with his team, and I also feel like he's often overrated on that side of the ball. Because when we scrimmage those guys, I mean, this guy's basketball IQ was extremely high. And so I can imagine having a chance to work for someone like that early on and what it can do for you. But I want to go back to this shed because like, how does this happen? Does he just say like, I need a shed and just,
Well,
you know
how Nick is.
or,
He gives you about half the story, and then you get out there and you get the other half. Well, I built a shed for him. I wired his house for surround sound. I didn't know anything about how to do that. I wired his house for surround. I did all sorts of stuff. Yeah, the shed. You know how Nick? Oh, I need you to go to the house and check on something real quick. Well, check on it. Turned out to be. Oh yeah, by the way, they delivered all these parts to a shed in the backyard. Can you put the shed together for us? I want you to check to make sure all the parts were there so you could put this thing together. That's how he operates. So that was that. I don't remember exactly how it worked, but oh man, that was a brutal afternoon.
But now was this at the beginning? Had you been with Nick for a little bit, or
no? This was towards the very beginning. Now we obviously became. I mean, we became extremely, extremely close.
Yeah. So he was definitely testing you.
Oh, he was testing me, and I mean, I'd have to go get his lunch every day. I mean, it was wild. One thing that was this was huge for me, and this was really, really good for me. At Clemson, it's a very rural, remote school. It's not really close to much of anything. And Coach Nickelberry hated to fly. And when he did fly, he didn't like to fly on like the small school plane and stuff. So what ended up happening a lot of times was I would drive him so he could talk on the phone and work and stuff. I would drive him a lot for recruiting. Like I was like his chauffeur. And I would drive him to North Carolina and drive him around. I wouldn't go in the schools or anything, but I got a sense for how, as a manager and a GA, like I got a sense for how recruiting works, how it works. Like we'd go to Charlotte. He'd make 6, 7 stops in a day in Charlotte. And I'm like, holy moly. Like we'd be going all over he'd be going into school for 30 minutes, come back out of the next place in the GPS, and we'd be going. And I mean, he was very, he touched a lot of bases. He used the days really, really well. And I got to observe that by, basically being a chauffeur and driving him around.
Yeah, it's all these little experiences that, especially with the GAs or support people, that I think are super valuable that you mentioned there. It's almost like stealing knowledge. You're able to listen in that conversation. And how many times in your life have you been able to kind of go back to those conversations when they're presented?
Oh, all the time. Like, you got to listen in to, I heard his recruiting spiels. I heard how he solved issues and just, everything. We were in the car together for, 4 or 5 hours getting there, and then all day driving around and then coming back. I mean, we're in the car together 12, 15 hours a day. You learn a ton. And I'm not talking, we did this like 1 or 2 times. This was, a couple times a week. And so, it was, I would always volunteer I started off kind of well, he kind of drafted me more than I volunteered, then I just, we just kind of came naturally, and, you learn a lot of valuable insight.
Yeah. And he's just got that kind of energy, and then you go from Clemson, you're there, GA, then your operations at Clemson, and that's how you landed at Harvard. Is that correct?
Yeah. Then I went to Harvard with Coach Amaker, which was a phenomenal experience. Being with him, it was the first couple of years at Harvard when it wasn't quite what he's built it into now, but just a great experience. The best part about being there was, it was my first job on the road as a recruiter, and I was very fortunate. I worked with a great assistant, Kenny Blakeney, who kind of taught me some of the ropes. He's now the head coach at Howard, actually. And I was very fortunate with that, but it was also great because you were at Harvard. So, like, if you screwed up recruiting a kid, the kid still usually wanted to go to Harvard because it was Harvard. So you could make some mistakes and still be all right recruiting wise.
Yeah, I remember. I was at William and Mary when you got to Harvard, and I just remember, all of a sudden, like, Harvard was everywhere. I mean, it was, when you're in the academic world, it sort of always goes Yale, Harvard, or whatever order you have there in one regard, and then you start going into your Ivies, and then you sort of have your Stanfords and your Northwesterns on the other side, right? And you all were the first staff to kind of start bridging that gap between the Northwesterns and the Harvards, and the Northwesterns and the Stanfords. And I just remember how relentless you guys were on the road recruiting.
Oh, that was all Coach Amaker. Like, I think, I say this, I think the Ivy League level of play has risen in direct relation to him, because I think he gave everybody hope that when we got there, Penn and Princeton had won the league like 24 straight years, one of the two of them. And I think he gave everybody, and then Cornell, Coach Donahue had done a great job at Cornell, and he won it one of the years we were there. But I think, Coach Amaker let everybody in the league know, yeah, we can recruit against these other really good high academic schools and get some of these kids because we're in the Ivy League. And there's no reason some of the rest of us shouldn't be good. There's no reason Harvard shouldn't be good. There's no reason Yale shouldn't be good. Cornell figured it out. Like, there's no reason some of the rest of us can't be good. We've got great brands. We've got great, we've got great alumni base. Like, we should be pretty good. And, it really stemmed from him and he'd be texting you at midnight. He'd be looking through recruiting list. Hey, what do you know about this guy? What do you know about this guy? This guy looks like he goes to a good high school. Do you think he's got good grades? We'd call on kids, and sometimes they say, Coach would say, well, what do you think? I'm like, Coach, we can't get him in. He's got a 2.5. Well, he goes to this great school. I'm like, yeah, but he's not a great student at the great school, so it doesn't matter. But he was always, looking for angles. He did a really, really good job. He found out, one of the things that helped him win initially was he figured out that if you could get kids from underserved areas where Harvard didn't typically get a bunch of applications from, that now they still had to meet the standards, but they would let them in. And so that's where, if they were a lot easier to get in, let's put it that way. And so that's where we really tried to come south, because that was where we looked at where the applications didn't come from a whole lot. And that's why we came south. We went to Minnesota. We went to Utah. Like, he cherry picked some places where he thought, all right, we can get these kids in school and there's some good players. And he was really, really strategic and really, really smart about that.
Yeah, you could definitely feel that. And sort of being like the disruptor, like the basketball disruptor. When you look at Harvard, Yale, Stanford, Northwestern schools at that level, usually they're the disruptor in the business world. They're the disruptor in the economics world, but rarely are you the disruptor in the basketball world. And you all kind of came in there and really disrupted some things by shaking the trees a little bit and attacking it differently.
Yeah, man, it was Coach Amaker. It was all him. We just did what he told us to do. He was spearheading the whole thing. But Davidson, he had a group of schools, like you said, he wanted to recruit against. He didn't want to be recruiting against some of the other Ivies. Like, he wanted to be recruiting against Northwestern. He wanted to be recruiting against. I've never seen him so excited. We got a kid. He ended up having a bunch of injuries, but he was a really, really highly sought. We got a kid, Andrew Van Nest. He was from, I don't know if you remember the name. This was probably
I remember the name.
2008. He was a highly recruited kid. He went to Northfield Mount Herman, and he was from right outside of Boston. And Northfield Mount Herman's about 2 hours from Boston. Beautiful campus, one of the best prep school campuses you've ever seen. And we beat basically Northwestern for him. And I've never seen, I was about as excited as I've ever seen Coach Amaker when we beat Northwestern. Brian DeStefano, one of our other assistants, he did a really, really good job on that recruitment. But when we beat Northwestern, he was fired up. But that was his goal, is he wanted to go against, he wanted to go head to head with some of those guys. We had a kid, Brandon Curry from North Carolina. And, he took an official visit to Harvard, took an official visit to Stanford, and we beat Stanford for him. And he was a lefty point guard. He was a really, really good player. And coach, and that was he wanted to dream big and make it happen, and he certainly did that.
Yeah, I know Brandon Curry too well. We were the third school on that list he visited. He visited William & Mary.
That's right.
And that's when you and I first really interacted. I remember going to
his flights got messed up. Stanford put him on like 2 connecting flights to get there, and the flights got delayed and stuff. I remember that from the recruitment. How about that? Well,
what's weird is that, that's when I first got to William & Mary. Antoine Jackson, who's a tremendous assistant and really brought a lot of us along. A DC guy, really taught, William & Mary recruiting in DC really started when Antoine Jackson got there. He brought a lot of us along. He didn't get a chance to bring a lot of the guys in from the area, but he did the hard work of introducing William & Mary to that area. Right? Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
And so then guys like myself and Cody Kimball kind of got the benefits from it, but he did all the hard work to get our name prevalent and around and bringing kids down on the visits. But he's a tremendous evaluator. And so him, Brandon Curry, I get there. He had just left to go to UMass, and Coach Shaver's like, we got to get Brandon Curry. And so, and I'm tasked with trying to build a relationship with someone starting in July. And, they don't make a decision. And I think he visited, last visit was in October, I want to say. But just a tremendous family. And I remember telling when I got there, get Brandon Curry. I was like, who's guys? He's got Harvard and he's got Stanford. And I said, guys, like, I don't think we're beating Tommy Amaker out for Brandon Curry if he can go there. Single mother. I was like,
Selena, the mom. Nice.
Selena. I was like, Harvard is going to change. Harvard's going to change his kids' generational wealth.
You sound like Coach Amaker on the home visit.
Yeah, so I just didn't like that matchup for us. You're looking at, I think Johnny Dawkins was at Stanford at the time.
I believe so. Yep.
Right. So you got Johnny Dawkins, black head coach at Stanford, black head coach at Harvard, and we have Coach Shaver, who's a great head coach in his own right at William & Mary. I just said, guys, I'm going to do everything I got here, but I think this is going to be a difficult one. I think there's going to be some factors that they're looking for that we're just not going to be able to offer them. And so I wasn't surprised when he went to Harvard. I was devastated. But, I felt like, TA's also.
Mary bounced back. They got the Kyle Galliard kid from the same area right after that.
We
shooter.
Yeah, we bounced back. And what's great is, so this is a great segue for this. That was the first time that I had a chance to interact with you on the road and watch how you worked and then watch the success that you all are having at Harvard. And probably the first time you had a chance to interact with us and how we kind of interacted. And I guess maybe at that time, both you all at Harvard and William & Mary, we were kind of being disruptors a little bit and going after some guys that normally we wouldn't have gotten. Yeah,
we were recruiting against William & Mary a ton. And, we were always in the same gyms. You know how the academic world is, people who haven't been in that world, it's really small. It's even smaller than the the college basketball and NCAA basketball world. It's like a world within a world, and or country within a world, I guess would be a better way to put it. But there's the same 6 to 8 AAU programs that have high academic kids that everybody knows, and everybody's recruiting the same guys. So you just run into the same teams everywhere. It's like Groundhog Day. You show up and there's William and Mary, there's Davidson, there's Northwestern, there's Stanford, there's all the Ivies, there's some of the Patriots trying to take off, see if they can get a couple kids. Here comes Vanderbilt. Georgia Tech would come in there. Rice was there all the time. Just depend on where you went. And you get a sense for people and how they do things. And William and Mary was much more, and especially like I said, we were trying to come south, and William and Mary was very aggressive in the south, and we really honed in on North Carolina, and that was an area William and Mary was trying to hone in on, and so it just ended up where we ended up bumping into each other quite a bit.
Yeah, I felt like it's interesting. So we had Antoine Jackson was there, did a great job introducing William and Mary to the DC area. Up until he got there, we'd only had a few guys from DC, and so that was always a major push. One of the reasons why I spent so much time up there. But we really just started looking at where were the best players in the history of William and Mary from. And, where could we get really, really good basketball players from without a lot of friction? And when you get south of William and Mary, academically, you have Furman and you have Davidson that have like that esteemed reputation, right? Then obviously a little bit out west, you got Vanderbilt. But so the South is like a great region to recruit if you're an academic person. Atlanta, Florida has some, it ends up being a really good place, but a lot of the more prestige academic schools happen to be in the Northeast. And at that time, they weren't really traveling down south as much.
That's a great strategy. I mean, that's how, you guys, I don't know the records exactly, but I know under Shaver, William and Mary played for the CAA title multiple times, which is not an easy feat at William and Mary. I think we're one of the only teams that's never been in the NCAA tournament, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. I think it's like 4 teams remaining.
And Northwestern was on it. And they knocked that off about 7-8 years ago. But it's obviously a challenging spot. It's a challenging place to find players and get players. But I think you guys had a big time strategy and a really, really good strategy that obviously paid dividends with good players and really good teams.
Yeah. What's great about both those situations, I always thought, is that if we're able to get a player in there, they were going to have a life-changing experience.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, it's both of them. I mean, I knew we were in the CAA with William and Mary, so we played them all the time when we were at VCU and I was an assistant. But the campus and it's really, it's the people you meet at those schools. It's the connections you make, the connections with the professors, the connections with the other students. I mean, that's the advantage that puts you on second base to start off when you get out.
Yeah, so you never feel like I never felt like I was lying to a kid. Sometimes you have these situations you're like, I don't want to say you're lying, but you're fudging one way or the other. There I felt like we're not lying. I mean, the facts of this place are better than maybe sometimes the reality of it.
Oh, there's no doubt about that.
So part of we go from, you go from Harvard, you guys start building that thing, then you get a chance to get on at VCU. What were the early years like with Shaka before we got there?
Well, I knew Shaka. We had worked together at Clemson. He had actually replaced Nickelberry, who we talked about earlier. And so Shaka and I had worked together at Clemson, and he was coming from Florida. And so it was unique. Mike Rhodes, who's the head coach now, he was hired. And then we had Mike Jones as well, who was came from Georgia. So, it was different. It was different from not being in the academic world. It was fun. It was, we were all young. Shaka was really young at that point. We were really young. We had unbelievably supportive administration, which is as I've kind of gone through this more, you realize how lucky you are sometimes with the administrations that you have. And that's an extremely, extremely important piece to being able to win or give yourselves the best opportunities to win. And I thought we had a great camaraderie with the administration there. And I thought, it was fun.
Yeah. I mean, we can tell the story. The story is a great story. It's like you, and Morel walking to practice.
That's right. We're right outside that subway.
Yeah, like Shaka used to be able to walk to practice. We used to walk to practice with him, but then after the Final Four, he could only drive to practice.
Yeah, he drove. He had his little private parking spot in the back there. All us peons. We were lucky he'd let us ride with him, but most days we walked if the weather was decent.
So it's like, we're getting back from, I think we got back from Charleston. Is that right?
Yeah.
We get back from Charleston. We're walking back. I think we've just lost to Seton Hall and Georgia Tech.
And we barely escaped Western Kentucky in like an 11 a.m. tip-off in the
buzzer,
consolation game. Yeah.
At the buzzer. I think we're sitting at 1-5, maybe 2-5.
We weren't that bad. I think we were like 2-3 or something. It was, it wasn't, this was coming off the Final Four year, so it wasn't exactly what everybody was expecting.
It felt bad. It felt like the sun and the stars were falling.
Correct.
I want to say we were 2-5.
Okay, you remember it better than me. You're probably right.
But I'm now a storyteller, so I over exaggerate. All right, so we're 2-5, and we're walking down, and you're like, shit, 2-5. We'll be lucky to get the 13 wins this year. and the way you said it was so funny. We just started we were laughing because it was a tough part of the year. Like we had all these young guys that ended up being really talented NBA players, but they hadn't figured it out nearly close enough yet.
Right.
And so we're sitting there and saying, we're lucky to get the 13 fucking wins this year. Right. So then,
I was the most, someone called me negative. I was the most realistic one on staff. Everybody else had their head in the sand.
So then 2 months later, we're walking down and you can chime in on this part.
Yeah. 2 months later, we're walking down and we've gone on a huge winning streak. I don't even know and I looked at Rel and I said, 22-6. Shit, man, we'll take that. And I was just telling him, remember how far we had come. And anyway, it just became like, I guess just a line, like everybody be like, oh shit. That's everybody just kind of used that, but
oh yeah,
it was something else. That was a fun year. I think we ended up going to the NCAA. We ended up winning the CAA tournament that year. That was when Troy Daniels hit all those free throws late against Drexel when Drexel was the one. So, we ended up winning the CAA tournament that year, which was incredible. And going to the turn, and then we won. We beat Wichita in the NCAA tournament, didn't we?
Yeah, we had 29 wins. I think the most wins in VCU history.
We beat Wichita, and then we lost to Indiana in a game we actually played really well.
Well, she hit one at the buzzer because I didn't get him at William and Mary. He picked Indiana over us and Stanford. So, the ones you don't get do come back to get you.
That's right.
No, it's just an amazing time. Like I remember, it's like you said that, and then we didn't lose for 2 months.
Yeah, we didn't lose for forever.
And it was like such an amazing year because the pressure was the highest, but we really rallied around one another. As a staff. I thought that was like the most fun year, not just because we didn't lose for 2 months. I mean, that's always fun too, but I've been a part of teams where we didn't do that before too, but that year, just the energy that we had as a unit was really special.
Oh yeah. That's a really underrated piece to really what made it work at VCU, but what makes it work anywhere is your cohesion with your staff. And that as the head coach is like, having everybody on the same page, having everybody, you're not going to agree on everything, but I can say the cohesion we had as a staff at VCU with you and, after you left to go to Mount St. Mary's with Jeremy, just with Morel and Kyle and Mike, everybody, like it was as, I think all of us, I think you would agree with this. I think all of us since then have been like, why can't we recreate that?
No doubt.
Like you always go back to why can't we recreate? And it wasn't perfect by any means, but it was just unique. It was really, really cool. And that's why we're all still, close to this day and still talk, but it was, and it kind of spoils you. I guess, I was a young assistant. I was in my 20s, and I guess I thought that's how it was everywhere. And then you realize, like, man, this was kind of like utopia. This isn't how it is everywhere. Like, this is different.
Yeah. It's so crazy. So you're coming from Harvard, and you guys are rebuilding that thing. I'm coming from William and Mary, where I've seen the mist of rebuilding that thing. And so I think our level of gratitude for the things that we had, they were also at an all-time high.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I
We were
remember
complaining about walking to practice, but we loved it every day. So that was a good part of the day. Get some fresh air and walk, go down to the art building, turn right, go past that little pizza joint, go to Franklin Street, turn left, and hop in the gym.
It's like one of the few jobs where I felt like I'll be honest, it's one of the few jobs where I felt like I could just be the best version of myself every day.
Oh yeah, we had just everybody was in the office trying to help each other, talk to each other.
We had limited distraction. Like it was like get the guys better, bring in good players. Like it was like that.
And nobody cared about the credit, just all the stuff that you run into on a lot of staffs. Like we didn't have that, and we were very, very fortunate.
Yeah, it was. I know I was excited coming in there and having a chance to work with Rhodes, who I'd known for a really long time, and having a chance to work with you. I just felt like, man, this is gonna be crazy. It was. I will say this: though, my first 2 weeks, you guys didn't speak to me. So,
we didn't.
Not at all. It was so weird. Only the GAs talked to me. Me and Maturo. Morel, so it was so weird. I was like, all right, like maybe this is a little different, like I walked in, I was like, hey guys, I mean,
we're probably just feeling you out.
But my energy's different too.
Once we realized how good you were going to be on our flag football team, we knew we had to we knew we had to bring you in the fold.
No, I remember the first time I was like, we were ordering food into the office or whatever, and I was like, hey Will, like, what do you want to get? I think it was Lee's chicken or something, and and you're like, yeah. And then we sat down, and after that, we got like some sweet tea, some chicken, and some apple pie.
The weight of my heart.
We just started rapping. And then, later on I came in and I'm like, we got the GAs, we got everybody. And this is probably right when school starts.
We had incredible GAs too.
Oh, amazing. I mean, how many of these guys are coaches? I mean, so one of these guys is like a TikTok star now. Like, we got everything.
We had an interesting conglomerate, but it worked.
Yeah. So we get to, here's the things that, like, when you try to bring things to a staff, like you guys were pretty established. We had just come out the Final Four. I remember coming in and it was like September and we got this email about flag football. And everywhere I've been, we'd always played flag football with the students because I feel like it's just a great way to connect. And it's a great way to connect as a staff. And I remember coming in and being like, what do you guys think? Like, you guys want to play some flag football? And Rhodes was like, no. He was like, no. Shaka was very mad that we were even thinking about doing it. But you were juiced about it. Morel was juiced about it. Donnie Lynn was juiced about it. The GAs were juiced about it.
Roos was the most juiced about it.
Yeah, Roos was juiced about it.
Shaka would be really upset if he knew we had the GAs making play sheets for our wristbands during office hours. I don't even know if he knows that to this day. So.
It was just such an amazing time.
Roos helped us big time. Roos was like on a national championship flag football team at Appalachian State, like an intramural team. So he like had us play in zone defenses and we had these play sheets that the GAs would type out for us. And frickin' Morel was a high school quarterback. He was Jason Witten, the tight end. He was like Jason Witten's high school quarterback. So Morel was good. And then Zay was so good. One of our GAs, he
electric.
Was cat quick. We could just hand them. It was crazy. We lost in we got messed over by the officials, by the fraternity in the championship. You remember that?
Absolutely. I think about it every time I watch football, actually.
Yeah, we got messed over in the championship.
It's the only thing we didn't win that year.
Yeah, it was wild though. 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock on Sunday nights. It was crazy. When we called our team Havoc or whatever, they finally figured out that we were the coaches.
Yeah. And then we started getting
remember the players started to come to the games.
Yeah, we started getting a little bit of a following. Like there started being people coming to the games to watch. And I just remember
that was fun. You can't do that anymore. It'd be somebody would find something wrong with it. But that was a heck of a time.
I remember, and this is like, and we're still kind of getting to know each other. And I remember the first game we come out and I think were you playing safety or corner?
I don't remember.
You were playing either safety or
neither
corner.
Very well, but I was out there.
You were out there. But here's the key. This is when I was like, oh, this is why this guy's so good. So first play, they're calling out numbers, 7, 6, 5, whatever, calling out the different routes. And so we're like, all right, so these teams pretty organized. On the second play, the first one they called the numbers out. On the second play, they started calling the numbers out, and you said 7's a crow route, 5's a slant, and you just started calling out the other team's routes. And then it was like, I was like, oh, this is why this guy's one of the best. Like he already figured out what their game plan was, and then they had to start huddling all over the place. But
yeah, they were organized. Some of those teams were really, really organized. That's what we realized, because we kind of went out there haphazardly at first, and then after like a week, we were like, all right, we told the GAs, like, y'all got to get the plays right. We got to have our stuff right. Ruth like met with them about like actual strategy and how to win. And, we had Morrell in charge of, Morrell goes off on the officials. He got kicked out of one of the games, didn't he? Did he get suspended or something for a week or something?
Yeah, he was out for a bit. He still came and supported.
Yeah. Oh, we probably shouldn't be saying all this. I don't think anybody knows all this stuff, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I thought
you build staff camaraderie. I mean, everybody, we all had a good time. We looked forward to it. This was a fun. That was fun. We planned our recruiting around it. Maybe we'd all be in the airport like Monday morning at 4 a.m. so we could fly out, because we weren't flying out on Sunday, so we could play in the game.
And I agree. Like, I felt like that was one of the best. One of the reasons why we were such a close staff is like we like sort of went on this journey alone, and then like I felt like we learned each other as we were kind of doing it.
No doubt, we did that. We ate lunch together almost every day. We were always around. And Shaka fostered an incredible environment where he kind of let us all do our own thing, or be because we're all very different, but we all got the job done, and our personalities were different, but it was it was a lot of fun.
Well, I always say this about Coach, but I thought was in Coach. I mean, we haven't talked about Coach at all, but he obviously is amazing. What I always say about him is like he was able to create this environment where you're like an early morning guy. Rhodes is like, more normal. You know what I mean? He's like, I got a family, so he's got a more normal life. And obviously hardworking in his way as well. And then I was like more of like the late night guy. So you might get in at 4:30 or 5, whatever it was, you're getting in, and I might be leaving at 3. Right. But Shock had this environment where we could all kind of work together. And I think that's really difficult to do after being a head coach for 10 years. It's like, how is he able to foster that kind of environment and us all be successful in what we're doing at the time?
No doubt. No, I mean, he let everybody kind of play to their strengths. There weren't necessarily office hours or anything. He just kind of came in and got what you needed done and kept it moving. And he was really, really, really good about that. And that's a huge strength of his as a head coach.
Were you ever nervous? We get to the end of the year, and when you were Coach Smart, it's like he had a chance to go to so many different places. Did that ever make you nervous that he had a chance to leave when you're working for him?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you get, I get nervous, because you know how it is. I mean, you hope you're going to be able to go, but you don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, I would get nervous. And as you know, he's so private, so you had no idea necessarily. And we were both, very close with him. But he's so private. Like, you would find out before it hit the media, but about 3 minutes before it hit the media is when you would find out. And so, you didn't know.
Yeah.
I remember in one of them, we were at lunch. They had a little like Mexican restaurant that it was only there for like 3 months. They went out of business. We ate there all the time, because you get like 5 tacos for like $2. It was great. It was right around. It was right past the Qdoba and all that down there, like one block down on Broad Street. And so I was in there, and I found out he turned down some. I got a text, and I found out he turned out some job. I'm like, oh, okay, all right, we're back here again. I mean, just kind of got used to it, but you just never, because you never knew exactly which one was going to make him tick. But looking back, I mean, he had unbelievable discipline. He had unbelievable foresight for somebody so young, and I didn't have this. He understood probably more than even me or you or any of us just how good he had it at VCU.
Yeah.
And he knew that, and he understood that as much as he understood it way more than I did, and probably way more than any of us did. And he was just extremely patient and extremely thoughtful in how he went about it, because he loved what he had, and he didn't want to kind of mess up and ruin what he had. And so, but that takes unbelievable discipline that a lot of people don't have. I couldn't have done it with him. I couldn't have. If it was me in that position, I don't know if I would have been able to do that. I could do it now, but
Yeah.
not when I was younger. And he just had tremendous foresight on all of that.
Yeah, I always say, like, number one, I was there, and he had that where I was there for I was only there for a little bit. And for me, I was like the newest guy there. So I'm like, man, there's no way I'm going. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was like, there's no way I'm making this trip, but now knowing coach, it's like, that shouldn't have been a thought, like he actually cares about all his people, and he's going to try.
Correct.
To
oh yeah, I shouldn't have.
right.
No,
but at the time,
we
you're just
would have all gone in
confident.
some capacity. There's no doubt about that. But at the time, you have no idea. You just don't know.
Yeah. And I give coach so much credit. I know you went through this. I went through this. And I don't think people realize, like, when you're like the coach that people are coveting and trying to get, it's like really overwhelming.
Oh,
like it's almost like you can't really function. It's like exciting. It's like what you all work for. Everyone works for this. So I'm not complaining about it. But it's the only time in my life I said there's a lot of pressure in March for coaches on the move. Because you're just fielding all these phone calls from alums, from donors, you know how it goes. And you're trying to like figure out what's the best decision, and I think when you're in that, every place you're at starts to have some warts. And coach was able to kind of work through that and really make clear decisions.
Oh, he was the best at that. And, he had a go-between that people had to call. You couldn't deal with him necessarily on some of it. He was really organized, really thoughtful, and really smart about how he went about it. And, quite frankly, he really helped improve the VCU program through all of that as well. I don't think it really wasn't, like you said, one of those deals where he was trying to hold them hostage it was, hey, look, this is what this school's coming at me with. This is what they have. We need some of this. I really don't want to go there, and I'm probably not going to go there. But, when I come back here, I need this to help us continue to grow and win. I mean, a lot of it he kind of used as a fact-finding mission to find out what other people were doing and what he could bring back to VCU to help make them better. But you know how it is. A lot of that stuff's more speculation. I mean, I was with him for 4 years at VCU. I think there was only like one or two of them that I think he was really serious about. There was one of them I knew he met with. I knew he'd gone to meet with them. And there was one or two of them he was very serious about. The rest of them was just much more media speculation and people just throwing stuff against the wall. And they may have called and said, "Are you interested?" And he says, "No." You know what I'm saying? I mean, a lot there. Separating fact from fiction, looking back, was a lot more noise. And like I said, there was a few that I think he was very serious about and gave serious consideration to, but a lot of it was more noise than anything.
Yeah. And I think now, like us being in the seats that we've had, we recognize, like, I think when you're an assistant, you don't recognize how much noise there really is out there. But when you become the head coach, you kind of recognize, like, there's a lot of noise. I mean, 99% of it out there is noise that people are taking for fact in some way that may not, or that usually isn't even close to being true.
Oh yeah. I mean, shoot, if they get 20% of it close to the truth, that's a pretty good story on most of the rumors and most of that stuff that's out there. It's usually about 80% false and 20% true on the good stuff. So, I mean, just, you don't realize that as an assistant because it doesn't affect you as much. But as the head coach, you're much more aware of that, just because the effects on you are a lot more. There's a lot more effect on you, in those situations. And so, Shaka, like I said, he handled that stuff extremely well. And that's probably why he didn't tell us, because the more people that know, the more opportunities you have for a leak. And, at that stage, you don't want to leak.
Yeah. And so then we kind of go through that experience. You go to Chattanooga for a few years, help rebuild that, and then you come back to replace coach. I mean, what is that? I can't imagine the pressure of that coming back, replacing coach, and you know,
Oh, it was
shit.
rough. It was rough. You know, I replaced him, and then the schedule we played like Florida. I mean, our schedule was brutal. We started off 5-5. We ended up going to the NCAA tournament. We started off 5-5, and I mean, there was a lot of pressure. Um, I was just told just keep getting them to the NCAA tournament. Because I think at that point it'd been 5 or 6 straight NCAA tournaments and like 9 out of 10 or 8 out of 10, and um, you better keep the NCAA tournament streak alive. That was in no uncertain terms the directive. But it's a great place, and they supported us great. Ed, the AD, was tremendous. Um, and Palumbo, who's now at A&M Corpus Christi, and the whole crew, they were really, Mac and all those guys. They were awesome. But it was pressure packed because you're following a legend. You're following somebody who really took the program to a unbelievable level, and the expectation was to keep it moving and keep it trending in that direction. Luckily, I was kind of young and naive and just kind of said, all right, yeah, we'll just kind of figure it out and go in there and make it happen. I probably should have done a few things differently when I got there, but at the end of the day, we were able to figure it out and make it. We made a couple NCAA tournaments and kept the streak alive, which is what they told me to do.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, that's one of the more interesting interview processes with that one. I think you were involved in there a little bit. I was, Rhodes was, maybe a few other people. Because Ed's like, I mean, to me, that was like one of the shorter interviews I've ever been a part of. It was like 3 questions because Ed really had an idea what he wanted to do, where he wanted to go with it. And I thought that was just so interesting, like I think Ed just said to me, like, how are we gonna win a national title? It was like the question to start, I was like, wow, we're just getting after it right away.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it was. I met with him in a hotel room in Indianapolis, and I left there, and it was funny. I left there, and I didn't feel great about it, honestly. And I walk out of the hotel, and like I turn left, and Mike Rhodes and his family are at the Final Four on the like he's got his family right there. He's the first person I see, so obviously I go up and talk. We're competing for the same job, but we're still friends, and so it was certainly interesting. But yeah, no, I mean, you know how Ed is. Ed's not gonna. He's gonna cut right through all the chatter and just get straight
Yeah.
to the point.
Yeah. And I've like gotten to know him through the years. I think he's just, I mean, what an amazing job they've done. We talked about administration slightly, but going from Norwood Teague and Mike Ellis and that crew to Ed and his crew, like, man, they've had a lot of great basketball teams through the years, but they've had a lot of great administration
Oh, it
help
all
through the years as
starts
well.
with that Dr. Trani and then Dr. Rao, who's there now. Like it all like that stuff makes a huge, huge, huge difference. And Ed's been phenomenal, and all those people have really, really supported the basketball program and made sure that it's nationally relevant, which is what they want for the university. It's part of it's so tied into the university mission that everybody works really hard to make it happen.
Yeah, I definitely say it's like one of the most fun places I've ever worked. Like you go into the game and it's crazy juice in the building.
Yeah, you saw they just hired the Ryan back, the
Yeah,
band
they brought him
director.
back.
Oh, it'll be rocking in there.
We had him do a game at the Mount. They brought the VCU band up and did a game at the Mount. My second year there.
I love it.
And we still I mean, I'm a Mount grad, so we still have people who are at the games. It's like one of the best environments they've ever been a part of, and that's where the VCU environment every single game.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing is, I think going back to like Shaka had such an appreciation for that,
Yeah.
that, shoot, I just kind of thought, oh, that's all right. We're winning. Everybody's going to show up and sell out. Like you've seen it, and I've seen it at other places that we've been. Just because you win doesn't mean people are coming.
Right.
And I mean the loyalty and the support of the of the uh, of the folks at VCU, and just that environment they created in the Siegel Center. Unfortunately, I was on the other side of it when I was at LSU, and I had to take my team back in there. But I mean, still was an incredible environment. Shoot, I've got boosters at LSU that went on that trip with us that still talk about that trip.
Yeah.
And how wild the Siegel Center was.
Yeah, I had to go back in there. Obviously, I went in there as a member of the tribe when I was coaching there, and then I had to go back as a head coach when I was at GW a couple times.
It's not as fun in that visitors' locker room and walking out that other tunnel. It's a lot more fun when you're walking out the home team tunnel.
Yeah, you can feel the juice differently.
Yeah, exactly right.
I've been on that other side of it, and when they're pressing and trapping, and it's different when you coach there. You kind of know what to expect. But you do probably need a pretty experienced team to go in there once or twice to kind of just really know how to handle it. Obviously I didn't get a chance to bring another team in there a couple times, but the next few guys will have a chance to figure that out.
No doubt. No, it's the environment and their style of play can certainly eat you alive and quickly. Yeah.
Last Call with Jamion Christian is powered by Speakeasy for Sports, the first exclusive platform for sports professionals by sports professionals. We connect you directly with top performers in the industry and allow you to build the relationships that will help grow your career. Think of it as the Final Four, NBA Summer League, or any other sports convention, all now from your laptop and phone 24/7, 365. Careers grow through relationships, and relationships grow through Speakeasy. Join the Speakeasy family today at SpeakeasyForSports.com. So you make that move, you go to LSU, which everyone in our family was like, this is a great move for Will. We were so excited for you getting a chance to go there. We felt like, how you coach, how you operate, how you recruit. And, you obviously turned that thing around pretty quickly. What was it about LSU that really attracted you there? You obviously had some other options, but what was it about LSU that really, pulled you closer there to the South?
Well, I grew up in the SEC country, and I really wanted to kind of make a run at it in the SEC. And quite frankly, they were the one that was open and the one that would give me a shot. But I mean, I really, you'd never know when you take a job like how it's going to work. I mean, Louisiana and LSU is a very, very different place, very, very different environment, very, very different place. And, for an outsider like myself, it can be very, very challenging. I had no idea that I would be able to form the connection with the fans and everybody in the state. And I could coach a long time and probably never have the connection like we had at LSU between our staff, the players, the fans, all of that. And the way they welcomed me and the people down there, welcomed me, even though I wasn't, from there or one of them. Was tremendous. And I didn't understand all that when I took the job. About 2 weeks in, I figured out real quickly, like, I better get a pulse on all this. But the people down there were just tremendous. And
what happened where you felt like you need to get a pulse on it?
It was really, really unique. You have a lot of people coming at you from a lot of different angles, politically and basketball wise. And there's a lot of moving parts. I mean, any big time job, VCU, any of those big time jobs, there's a lot of moving parts. But in Louisiana, it's totally different. It's the only big time school in the state. It's the flagship university. You got the governor who's involved and wants to know what's going on. You just have a lot of folks that are very, very invested in the program. And I realized, I'm not from here, but I better adapt and learn. And, obviously I came to love it. I mean, the place is a great place. The state's an unbelievable state. And the people were just phenomenal. I mean, anytime I still see people from Louisiana, we sit and they'll come up to me and we'll talk and have a good time. So it was look, I got fired and everything that went on, but I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't trade it. I thought that we had a blast for 5 years, and I loved every minute of it. I loved being down there. I loved representing LSU. I loved representing the people of Louisiana, and I loved every minute of it. I don't have any real regrets. I wish I hadn't gotten on that phone sometimes, but outside of that, I don't really have any regrets.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. Like, I feel like it was a great place for you, just knowing your personality. I definitely felt like you're going to be able to fire up that fan base, and it was, as a friend and as a person who enjoys basketball, I like when LSU basketball is really good. I think there's an energy that comes out of there that is phonetic, that is really good for college basketball. And so I was like, enjoy watching you down there, watching you build that thing, loving the guys you're able to get in there and watch you guys have a lot of success.
Yeah, the students there were awesome. Like the PMAC gets rocking now. Seats 14,000. Like it's really, really loud. And I think we said we have 2 or 3 of the top 5 season tickets, in the history of the arena, of the history of the Maravich Center. But it was tremendous. It took us a little time with some of the students, but they were great. The band, I mean, everybody, Dr. Jones with the band, like everybody was just really, really on board and trying to help us, become a championship caliber basketball program. And so that was fun. I got to see that from the ground level and really try to help, help build all that as much as I could. And I hope we built something that they can keep the momentum and keep it moving forward here in the coming years with Matt and those guys.
Yeah, it was so interesting. I remember this year and just all the stuff that's transpired in college basketball the last 3 years, just been like such a whirlwind. And I just remember watching Kansas win a national title this year, and just like, wow, just like really crazy mixed emotions. With the NCAA stuff that they were battling.
Yeah, I was happy Kansas won, but no, but I mean, look, the world's changing with NIL and with everything that's going on. The world is certainly changing. I think the views of the world are changing, and so I can't get into any of the specifics of all the stuff because we're still litigating everything. But I think certainly college athletics is changing. Some would say for the worse. I would say for the better. I saw something the other day, that now that I got all this time, I can read some stuff that I wouldn't normally read. But
you read every morning, though.
I know.
You read every morning.
I can read more kind of garbage type stuff. So I saw that, everybody said NIL, people are going to quit watching college football and all. I saw that the Notre Dame Ohio State game, I believe, and the Texas Alabama game both had over 10 million viewers. And it's like a select number of games since 1994 that have had over 10 million viewers for a regular season game. So my point is, with NIL and people knowing what's going on with NIL, nobody's stopping watching it's not like people are stopping watching the games.
Yeah, I hate when people throw out a random opinion and try to push it off as fact, right? Like it's like the people are going to stop watching the games because the kids are getting. And it's like there's no way to say that. There's no way to know that was going to be true.
Right. How do you know it's going to be true if it hadn't happened?
Right.
People love professional sports.
Right.
I mean, it's the same thing. And so I think there's a fine line. I mean, I do believe in the, developing the kids and the education. Like I believe in that. I was a teacher. My mom was a principal. I mean, that you're the same way. You're coming from educators, but there's also, they make a lot of money for the schools. The players do, and they should get some of that. I mean, that's just a fact. And so, the schools should get some too, because the schools give a brand like an LSU or a VCU or a George Washington. They give a certain brand to those players. So there's a back and forth and a give and take between the two sides. But I think now we're getting more to a level playing field on all that sort of thing.
Yeah, I agree. And I never felt like it was negative. Me, you and I see the picture the same way, but differently in some ways. And my whole thing was always just like, well, can we give them something, but then also educate them? Like, I feel like oftentimes they just want to give them something and not educate them. You know,
Right.
and like I'm like, we can do both things. Like we're educational platforms here. I mean, this is what we specialize in. So let's
No
just
doubt.
make sure that if we're
No,
giving
it
them money,
gives you
that they
no
can
does you
invest.
no good to give them the money if they don't know how to invest it or use
Right.
it or how to, figure out a way to pay the least amount of taxes on it. All
Right.
that sort. It does you very little good to do that with them if you don't have some of those other components in place.
Right. No, it's great. Well, Will, we got one other question for you. You've been great with your time as always. We do this thing on Last Call here where it's the end of the night. I know you don't drink, so this isn't a thing for you. Maybe we've had some sweet tea, but we've gone late into the night. But man, we've gone late into the night, and it's Last Call. To the left of you is someone who's retired. To the right of you is someone that's still working. What two people do you want sitting beside you on the Last Call?
Oh, that's a really good question. Wow, I should have prepared for this. I would, for somebody who's still employed. I love Rick Pitino.
Why don't we go up and see him?
I interviewed for a job with him, but he was smart enough not to hire me. But I always think he's pound for pound, I think the best coach in the game. And so, obviously, he'd be the one who's still coaching. He's still coaching. He's still coaching now. And then the retired would probably be Jay Wright, just to pick his brain and see what it's recent, but he obviously had a different way of doing things, and he built. You got to respect it, man. I mean, he built I'm not gonna say he built it from nothing because they had won there before with Raleigh Massimino, but when he got there, it wasn't anything. I mean, he built that thing from scratch, and it had his fingerprints and imprints all on it. And
he really endured some tough years,
correct? Oh yeah,
down years, and reinvented themselves about midway through, and one of the few guys I would say the end of his career was maybe better than the beginning.
No doubt.
Right? Usually, all kind of fizzle out at the end, but he
no doubt. He left. He was smart. He left when it was rolling.
Good. Well, Will, man, I appreciate you joining us on Last Call. Look forward to watching you succeed.
It was fun, man. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for joining us on the Last Call, powered by Speakeasy, where careers grow through relationships, and relationships grow through Speakeasy. We hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to connecting with you soon.